Good morning.
Morning.
For those who might have come on early, thinking it started at 9, I had put a little thing in there when you asked to use the waiver or the SABR's national account, it lists it a half hour earlier than you request so that you've got time to let people in. So I put a little note in my thing saying, hey, even though the invite's going to say 9, it's really 9:30. So anyways, if there's a miscommunication, I apologize, but in the meantime, I'm glad you're here.
Well, I watched Bugs Bunny this morning, who was playing a baseball game,
There you go.
and they went to the Empire State Building.
All right, so your time was well spent.
Oh, it was very well spent.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing? For the record, I missed Maverick this morning.
My bad. I tried to make it clear, but anyways. Adam, are you from the Columbus area?
No, I'm from Massachusetts. I saw
Oh.
the Oscar Charleston discussion.
Yeah, well, glad you made it.
All right,
Ka-
appreciate it.
Yep. Karen, where are you from?
Leland, North Carolina.
All right. Good deal. Glad to have you. Mark is from Springfield, Ohio,
Which was mentioned twice in the book, if you noticed.
which was mentioned twice in the book. There you go. All roads lead to Springfield, Ohio with Mark. He knows his history of his town. You guys got a good history.
Are you still in mourning over Big Ben, are you?
I'm not in mourning. It was time for him to move on. I think they could have let him go a year earlier, and I think
You're
just
from
that.
Pittsburgh.
I am from Pittsburgh, or
So
from
am
near
I.
Pittsburgh. Yeah, I'm from actually the Ohio side of the river near Steubenville.
Oh,
But,
I'm from downtown Pittsburgh.
All right.
And we are still, I'm not mourning about him. He was 5 years too late.
Yep. So it's time for us to move on. I just wish it were a year that there were a lot of quarterbacks in the, in the draft, but they'll figure something out. I mean, the team always, there's a reason why they've been, their bad years are their 8-8 years. So they seem to always figure things out with low draft picks. So
Well, you
We'll see
got
if
the
they can-
guy that sent Joe Burrow to LSU.
yeah. So
Mitch Trubisky. Sign him up.
yeah. And I think we'll probably sign guy, if not him, somebody like that's has starting experience, and sometimes a change of scenery, they'll catch fire again. So
Sure.
Mark, I put a placeholder. I can't remember when your upcoming meeting is.
We don't really have an upcoming meeting yet, but we've got the Dragons game coming up in May.
Okay, that's what didn't you send out a save the date thing just this last week?
I did.
All
Yeah.
right, so that's what I got.
It's in May, though.
All right,
Yeah, I got 20 free tickets, so I decided to give them to the SABR chapter.
thank you. Wow, good deal. I actually moved my seats down for the Clippers game. I upgraded 2 sections toward the other side of first base. I was real particular because I only want the one side of the aisle where people are not walking back and forth in front of you. And I like to be at least 10 to 12 rows up. I don't really like being too low. So anyways, I'd been waiting for the aisle seats to come available in these two sections, and one finally did.
Well, half the time I've got my press box seats, so that's not a bad spot.
No, no.
My minor league baseball team was one of the 40 that got eliminated last year.
Was it Pawtucket?
The Lowell Spinners,
Oh, yeah,
the New York Penn League got eliminated.
yeah. Who's playing there now? Anyone?
Just local college. That's it though. No affiliated professional baseball. Just too bad.
How many games a year did you go to?
Just like five to 10, but it was my
Okay.
kids are younger, but it would have been nice.
Yeah.
But they'll hopefully come back in the next 3 or 4 years.
That would be hard to just flat out lose your local team. That'd be,
Yeah.
it's not what,
We got Pawtucket moved to Worcester, like you were
Yeah.
saying, but that's like a half hour away. Whereas
okay.
the one that left was like 5 minutes away.
Is there anything in Pawtucket now?
No, they're probably even worse off than we were.
See where Jim Riggleman's going to manage the Billings team in the independent league out there that took over the Mustangs spot.
What I'd like to do a minor league tour of all those stadiums. I've been to the southern ones. I've been to Orem, the Raptors, Ogden, and Salt Lake, but I haven't been to Billings or Helena or, you know, any of the northern part of that Pioneer League. Morning, Stan.
Good morning, Blake. How we doing?
Good.
Good, good.
Hey, Rob.
Good morning, Blake. How you doing today?
All right. Rob, are you a Bengals fan as well?
Blake, you probably don't remember this, but I'm a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan because of my growing
I
up
do
in
remember
Wilmington,
that.
Delaware.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
actually,
man. Didn't mean to pick that scab.
No, it's not a scab at all. I got tons of friends that are Browns and
All right.
Bengals fans, and I'm really just rooting for a great game today. I
Yeah.
love Joe Burrow. I hope he does well, but I'm afraid he's going to get sacked a double-digit number of times today
Yeah.
or tomorrow.
Yeah. He's an easy guy to like. He's a pretty
Yeah, he
easy
is.
guy to like.
He is. He's a great young man.
Morning, Cindy.
Morning, how are you?
All right. All right. So are you and Tom Bengal fans?
Tom is, I'm not much of a football fan, but I'll be
Okay.
watching.
All right. Well, I know he was a Reds fan, and so are you. So I figured, well, may make sense.
Yeah, he was, even when they were losing, so.
There you go. I like to hear that.
Who's the most popular in Columbus? Browns,
I would say Browns first, Bengals second, and Steelers third.
I agree.
I will say in terms of like just gear, you probably actually see more Steeler gear than you do Bengals gear, because Steeler fans really wear their colors. But anyways, that's how I think the Browns though are by far the most popular here in Columbus. So, morning, Mike. Hi, Larry.
Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Rick. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Cindy. Hey, Blake,
Yeah.
can you hear me? What time is the author joining us, or is he already here?
No, he is to join us right at 9:30. So
Okay.
Once he arrives, I'm gonna get things moving, and
Okay.
especially because I think he's calling from out of state toward the west. So I think this was an early rise for him.
Right.
Morning, Jim Tootle.
Hey, good morning. That was a great book. I sure enjoyed that one.
Good.
Great choice for Black History Month. I don't think we planned it that way, but it worked out just great.
Sometimes we just get lucky.
Yeah. We should say we planned it that way, Blake.
Okay, we planned it that way.
That's our story. We'll stick to it.
Okay.
And I did confirm with Jeremy just Thursday, just about the time. So.
Okay.
He's out in Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was going to be an early rise for him, but
It's 75 or 80 degrees. I don't feel sorry for him. Probably a beautiful morning with the sun coming up over the cacti.
yeah.
But he still has no baseball.
He's probably sitting out on his veranda having a cup of coffee and no complaints. Any time of day.
Yeah, they're coming in now.
Yeah.
Rob, who is it you have behind you?
It's Oscar.
Oscar.
Yeah.
And do you know the others?
I don't remember. I downloaded this picture several weeks ago while I was reading the book.
Okay.
I remember the caption at the time, but I don't now.
A picture
in the book.
Oh, there he is.
I got it online.
That's
What's
part
that?
of your collection, Mike, or did you run out and get that just for the meeting?
No, I've had it for years. This is part of the 2001 Fleer series on greats of the game.
Oh,
Nice.
that is nice.
Okay, Rob's picture. It's the infield of the 1943 Quartermaster Depots team.
Oh my.
So Oscar, then Marvin Weinstein, Wendell Jenkins, and Eddie Brulette. It's in the book.
Nicely.
Oh, it's in
Thank
the
you.
oh,
Thank
it's in
you.
the book. Okay.
Trying to insert myself there as the second baseman.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some good pictures in the book.
Yep.
Good photos.
There's a lot of great photos of Negro Leagues in Monty Irvin's book too, Few and Chosen, where he ranks his rankings for all-time greats in the Negro Leagues. And of course, that's where he started. And he, of course, played with Willie and played against Oscar. And so he has some pretty good perspectives in there.
Do you have that book in front of you there, Mike? Show
I
us
do.
that cover. Show us the cover. Nice.
Okay. That's a nice looking book.
It's really nice. It's in Jeremy Beer's bibliography. He refers to it a couple times in his book, and I had it before. It was on my shelf. I just hadn't cracked it until we were reading this book. I thought, well, I'll do them in tandem.
Mike, who does he rank at the top?
Well, he goes position by position. He doesn't do a ranking per se. He does rank them by position. And in center field, he ranks Willie 1 and Oscar 2.
Mm.
That's about the only guy that probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Adam's holding up the Bazansky book. I think.
Yeah, he's got
Where is it?
Charleston 5 overall. Oscar.
Yeah.
5 overall. Mm-hmm.
That Poznansky book is just incredible. I mean, how he churns out as much as he churns out in the time he does with the quality he does is just amazing.
Can't remember is what ended up the book, basically the columns he did on the athletic website, or is there
Yes.
more in the book? Okay.
No, although there's a couple mysteries, because I followed his countdown on the Athletic as he was doing it, as a lot of us
Yeah.
did. And of course, I'm a lifelong Giants fan. And in his work for the Athletic, Juan Marichal was in his top 100. In the book, he's not in the top 100.
Huh.
So I tried to email Joe to say, hey, what did you do to my guy Juan? What knocked him out? And of course, I haven't gotten a response. So, you know,
Yeah, he mentioned that on the, I don't know if any of you heard the Baseball by the Book
Oh, that's
interview
right.
that he gave. He mentioned that it was pretty close, but then when the book came out, he had made a couple of changes. I didn't realize which ones they were, but apparently Juan was one of them. He'd moved a few people around a little bit, and he talked a little bit about his process for eliminating certain people, and had some in to begin with. The writing process took a long time. I mean, those articles took quite a while. So, well, you know,
my
it was
argument,
interesting.
if he would allow me a minute to make my argument for Juan, it would be that there was never a decade for pitching like the 1960s. And when you look at the entire decade of the 60s, no one had better numbers than Juan.
Wow.
In every way. Wins, win percentage. I mean, you name it. His numbers for that decade were better than Gibson's, you know, better than everybody's. And Alan Barra has done a nice job with that. Alan Barra has done some nice work over the years, and he makes the case for Juan being the best of the 60s. And I wouldn't quarrel with him, but he's got Blyleven in his top 100. He's got, I know we've got a Yankee diehard on the call here, so I'll be gentle, but he's got what?
Who?
Oh, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy.
Pettit?
Pardon?
Pettit?
Yeah. I'll get my Poznansky book off the shelves and verify.
Lopat, maybe?
Pardon me?
Lopat, maybe?
Who? Oh, no, not
Lopat.
Lopat.
No.
I don't think Lopat was Lopat in there.
No, it's a guy from the 90s.
Gidry?
Messina?
Messina. He's got Messina in his top 100
Oh,
over Juan, and I can't figure that out.
I'm with you there. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Dave, what do you mean by he's been reevaluated?
Oh, I just think he went from nobody would even consider, Burt Blyleven in the Hall of Fame, to now I think he's like in that, he's not like obviously with Walter Johnson or whatever, but I mean, I think the sabermetricians have him pretty ranked pretty high for his career now. I was just kind of Googling his WAR compared to Marichal Blyleven's at 94.5. Not that WAR is a perfect stat, I know. Yeah, Marichal's only 62.9. Blyleven played for some bad teams.
He did. Yeah, the new age metrics have caused a lot of revisionism, no question.
Yeah. Sometimes too much.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm kind of surprised we don't have our guest yet. Making sure there's nobody I haven't admitted in the room.
Did Pizanski rank the people? Did he fold in intangibles too? I can't remember, because Marichal would have been, one of the very first dominating Latin pitchers too. That would have been something else to fold into his case.
Yeah, I mean, Sports Illustrated back in the mid 60s made a case for Juan as being the, at the vanguard, the guy who ushered in the great Latin pitchers, and of course he did. And there's just a lot of qualitative stuff too, a lot of interviews along the way from great hitters. Pete Rose said, for example, Marichal is the toughest pitcher he ever faced, and a lot of great hitters said the same thing through the 60s, just because of his incredible variety of pitches and his control.
You think we'll ever see a guy with a leg kick like Marichal again? I just can't see them letting that go on. That would be something that the coaches now would fix at a younger age.
I'm sending Jeremy a kind of a little nudge here.
Is it a 2 or 3 hour time difference right now?
2 hours.
2 hours.
I was always pretty clear that we were Eastern Standard Time.
Right.
Doesn't mean that when you're in another time zone, you think, well, that really means something else. But
Blake, I was wondering if you were keeping tabs on when the Dave Parker book is going to be in paperback.
I haven't. It's I actually bought the hardback edition. I mean, if it's about a pirate, I tend to buy hardbacks.
Oh no, I bought it right away too. I just meant for the club or for the book club.
Yeah, no.
I just bought it too.
Yeah,
it's great.
I have it. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. That was my sweet spot for baseball as a kid.
So if you guys are Pirates fans, is there any hope for Mitch Keller?
I don't know. He's been a hard one to figure out, because he is always dominant down in the minor leagues and then woefully inconsistent in the bigs. I mean, he'll go out and throw a 2-hitter over 7 innings, and then the next game, not get out of the second inning. It makes me, want Ray Searage back as our pitching coach. I feel like we always were salvaging old arms, and it was just a better time, I think, when we had a better pitching coach.
Our Springfield boy always outpitched him, Brubaker, but Keller always got the attention.
Pirates ought to sign an agreement to get Columbus as their AAA farm team. They were good.
Yeah.
Pirates were great teams when the Columbus Jets were furnishing the pipeline.
Absolutely.
They ought to turn that around.
My guy was Al Oliver.
We had a
you
Columbus
go.
man of those. That's what made them great.
Manny Sanguillen and Dave Cash Robertson and Richie Hebner and Zisk, and goes on and on. Steve Blass.
Sturgill had really good things to say about Columbus as a city over the years in terms of its openness. And of course, he came up out of the South, and but he stated in one of those books I read that Columbus was the most welcoming, open city in his younger days.
I remember seeing him play left field when he was here. I think Don Clendenin played first base and Willie played the outfield then.
Wow.
Well, guys, I don't know what to tell us, and you got gals that I don't know what got miscommunicated here, but he hasn't responded to the email. Well, shall we start talking a little bit about the book, even if it means we have to repeat ourselves some when he joins us? Anybody want to lead off with some comments on the book?
Yeah, I'll just start. I'll just say I learned a lot about the history of the Negro Leagues. I think this was like two books in one in a way. We got a wonderful biography of one of the great players, but in telling his story, he weaves in all what was going on with the Negro Leagues in general, and how they were operated, different teams and other star players. So I just learned a whole lot from. I thought it was two books in one. I'll say that.
It was a great history of the city of Indianapolis too. I learned some things about Indy that I didn't know. They had the highest percentage of African-American population north of the Ohio River. I've really found that amazing. 40% of the men were members of the KKK of the white population. My son lives in Indianapolis. He said that didn't surprise him, to be quite honest.
As an old newspaper man, I really appreciated his research into the Black newspapers and the Black baseball writers of the era. And he's shown a lot of light on the operations of the Black press and how integral those archives were to his research.
Can't imagine how difficult it would be to research the Negro Leagues with the records and kind of the hodgepodge that kind of put together back in the day. His research was excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 10 or 15 years ago, this book probably couldn't have been written the way he wrote it. So much has come along in the last few years. That's one thing that amazed me is if you look back at how much research he did, but I don't think those sources were readily available maybe 15 years ago, let's say, to write a book like this that was so complete, really almost a definitive account of Charleston's life.
Oh, and his ability to give us concrete statistics was very helpful. And certainly that's not something that could have been done until recently.
Right.
Yeah, and the sheer volume of testimonials, both firsthand and secondary source testimonials from the Warren Spahns and the Dizzy Deans and the Bob Fellers and the Garrigs and all those guys who talked about Charleston's incredible talents. A lot of those guys saying he was the best, or certainly one of the best they'd ever seen. really bolstered the case for him.
I think I could have done a high school book report just off the introduction.
Yeah. The biggest disappointment for me wasn't anything, any failure of the authors. It was learning in the first page of the epilogue that Thomas Boswell, who's written a lot of good stuff over the years, heaped scorn on the Sporting News for ranking Charleston as the 67th best player of all time in their 1999 rankings. And Boswell just went on to be sarcastic in his put down of how Oscar Charleston could possibly have been ranked that high. And I thought, boy, that kind of lowered my estimation of Tom Boswell, who's written a lot of stuff I think we all think of pretty highly.
Mike, I had exactly the same reaction. It seems so uncharacteristic of Boswell.
Yeah, if we had the author on the phone, I was going to ask him if since publication of the book, if Boswell's done anything approaching a mea culpa over that, because that's what you'd expect from a class act, to say, hey, I acted impulsively and I take it back,
I mean, something the book covered that, I had an inkling of because some of the other things I read, but just the lifestyle of immediately going from, quote, the season and going straight down to Cuba, where, I think a lot of these Negro Leaguers were treated like kings down there. And that was just part of their lifestyle, is they just kept playing ball. Maybe they'd go out and play in California for a little bit before heading to Cuba, but it's been a reoccurring theme. The other reoccurring theme that I thought Jeremy painted a good picture of is just the fact that so much of their money was really made from barnstorming and not these league games. That there wasn't that much of an incentive to like really have a strong league. I mean, you wanted to get around the barnstorming around small towns and where you could get the gate, and that was where a lot of the money was for the players.
So that's a good point. I didn't know that either. I assumed the leagues were more important and their championships and all that. And it turns out that was, sometimes they didn't even play all the games or keep track of them, or, wasn't that big a deal. Money's money. You gotta, pay the bills and make enough money to get by on. That's where the money was, I guess. I remember seeing ads that in the 50s and 60s that the Indianapolis Clowns were coming to town. I never saw them. I mean, I was just a kid then, but I remember seeing in the sports page, it's the Indianapolis Clowns will be at Redbird Stadium or Jets Stadium on a certain day, and have little ads for them and all that. So they were still, in the latter stages there, they were still coming through here, and we might have seen them.
Blake?
Yeah.
I say, in answer to Mike, don't forget experts can make mistakes too, like Mr. Boswell with our man Oscar Charleston, because just remember Urban Meyer once said that Joe Burrow is not going to amount to anything as a quarterback.
There you have it.
Well, I thought one thing that surprised me about the barnstorming and some of the different games that came along was the fact that they several times dropped World Series games in order to go barnstorming. I don't think I'd picked that up before, and I thought that was, my jaw dropped on that they would not finish the World Series a couple times because they could make more money, obviously, from something else. But I suppose when you look at some of that, if you were studying the Negro Leagues back early on, that may be why you might have rated some of the players lower, but I still can't see how anybody could have rated Oscar Charleston 67th on a list if he'd done any research at all, had any knowledge of the game. That's shocking.
By the way, I was reading various things on the internet, you know, trying to learn more about all this. Came across in 1946, there was a Negro National League World Series game played here in Columbus, as they moved around and, you know, didn't always play in the park of the teams that were in there. It moved it around where they could get a crowd. But I found one reference to 1946, so that'd be fun to go back and find a little bit more about that, what teams were in it, what players and all that. So this could have been a pretty good game because it's 46. It's before Jackie Robinson and all that. So the leagues would have, you know, the teams would have still been full strength, all the great ones. So
there was also a reference in the book about a barnstorming game here in 1934.
Yeah,
which included Stilton and some other guys. Yeah. That I've got it marked down to do some more research on it. Yeah.
Jim, did you come when you did your book on baseball in Columbus? Did you come across much with the Negro Leagues, the franchise that we had here a couple times?
Yes, I got a picture of John Henry Pop Lloyd in there, which I've most expensive photo. I had to pay the Hall of Fame $40 for that one. Everybody else was much more cooperative, but I didn't want to have the book without having him and Negro Leagues represented. We had three teams. We had in 1921, we had the Columbus Buckeyes, and that's when John Henry Pop Lloyd was our shortstop and player manager when he was still in his prime. And then in 1933, we had the Columbus Bluebirds, and Ted Double Duty Radcliffe was on that team. I don't know if he did his double duty while he was here, but and Dizzy Dismukes was the manager, which a name that keeps coming up in the Oscar book. And that they only lasted half a season, and they had a poor record and weren't drawing well. So they left town at half and moved to Cleveland, became the Cleveland Giants. And then 1935, we had the Columbus Elite Giants had moved here from Nashville, and they did pretty well. They finished third behind the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the New York Cubans. And they were still using Neal Park then and Redbird Stadium for the bigger games, but Neal Park for a lot of them. And that's the manager was Candy Jim Taylor, another name that we had repeatedly in the book here, tied in with Oscar. And then they only lasted 1 year and moved to Washington Elite Giants, and then Baltimore Elite Giants, which in 1938, and then that lasted quite a while there. So we had three times, but no more than one season each.
And from the Negro Southern League, we had the Turfs in for about a half a season in 1932. I think we were probably their most northern team. Steve?
Yeah, excuse me. That game in Columbus was between the Crawfords and a barnstorming team at Dizzy Dean. October 22nd, 1934, and the Crawfords won 5-3. It's referenced in the book. I inadvertently said Bob Filler earlier.
Well, Dave, what are you showing us there? Dave's got a picture. I can't hear what he's saying.
Oh, it's Jim's picture of Pop Lloyd that he had to pay so dearly for.
Oh, there you go, Jim.
Yep. Yeah, nice picture of him. I wish he'd have been in a Columbus uniform, but since we only had him for 1 year, I guess the odds of finding that were pretty slim. I was glad to get as good a photo as I found there to use. So But I want to make sure the readers knew we had the Negro League teams and kind of weaved that in with the Senators and the Redbirds and all that.
So what were the circumstances of obtaining that picture?
Hall of Fame does, have quite a library, but you just have to pay for them.
Okay. Oh, it's in the Hall of Fame. I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, and so that's the only place I could find one, and I didn't find any at the local sources where I'd gotten most of the other photos. And the Citizen Journal photo morgue was very helpful. It's at the Grandview Library, and they were very generous in giving those for free. And the Columbus Public Library had some things, and also no charge there. They were Sam Rochon, who was the local history librarian down there for many years. He couldn't have been more helpful. He was so happy that somebody was doing a book on it. He was running around finding things for me, so I wouldn't have to look for him. He went out and found them. And so it was, good experience there. You need 180 photos to do an Arcadia book. And so pull those in from various sources. I wanted to do a little more text writing, and so I kind of talked to my editor about that. So many Arcadia books I've read, they have nice photos, but it says, it's a picture of a man riding a bicycle, and the caption is "Man riding a bicycle." And I wanted to tell some stories there that brought more information in. So I got permission to do some longer captions and longer chapter paragraphs at the beginning. So
it was a great book.
Well, thank you. I sure enjoyed doing that. I had it in my mind all the time I was working full time. Boy, when I retire, that's my first project. And they did a nice kind of book launch down at the Columbus Public Library. I remember Mike Curtin came, maybe somebody else, I don't know, but I remember Mike came, and that was very nice, and they had a nice crowd, and I got to give a little talk on it and all that. But the library down there was just so proud. They said, "Oh, this is our third Arcadia book that has used our photos." I mean, they were, and you go to some other places and they go, "I don't know, we'll have to charge you for those." Mike knows where that is, but anyway. So
Steve, were you showing the book?
Huh?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out for those that might be interested, there's a book out on Biz Mackey that I've read by Rich Westcott. I believe he's a Sabres guy. And Biz Mackey gets mentioned quite a bit in the book, and the foreword's written by Bonnie Irvin. So if anybody's interested,
that'd be good.
It's an excellent book on Biz Mackey. Yeah, covers a lot of the same type of stuff that was in the Charleston book, but it's excellent also.
Jim, I remember when your book had just come out, you had given a presentation up in the Captain's Club at the old Cooper Stadium.
Yeah. Right.
There were probably 60, 70 people at that one.
Right.
And I think that's where I hadn't seen you in years, and it was good to see you that day. That's where I got mine.
Yeah, I
knew
got
I
mine
could
there
get it
too.
autographed by the author.
Oh boy, yeah. For those of you
What
that
an
don't
incentive
know,
that was.
Blake and I worked together at Ohio State around 1980 and had the office softball team and all that stuff. And we were good friends back then and talked a lot of baseball. And then we kind of went our separate ways. And I hadn't seen Blake for a long time. And then, so that's one great thing about our SABR chapter, to reconnect with people and talk baseball. What a great time. Larry Baum shows up, and colleague at Ohio State is just terrific.
And Mike Curtin was just a beat reporter for the county commissioner's office.
Yeah, he was a cub.
Doing real work, not office work, real work.
Yeah.
When did the Hank Gowdy chapter start?
We kind of had a semi-start probably back in the early 80s or mid 80s, about the time when your book started or came out, Jim. Do you what year was that?
2003.
Okay,
and I remember Joe Santry at the Clippers had kind of made some attempts to get everybody together, but it never really gelled. And then when Blake and Rick stepped up is when it really happened. So that was a wonderful thing.
I think that meeting at the Cooper Stadium where I bought Jim's book, the same one Blake's talking about. I think that was an attempt by Joe to kind of get things going. And we had a good crowd there that night. You probably sold a lot of books, Jim. And then it kind of petered out for a while. And then when they opened the new ballpark, when Huntington opened up, Joe gave us a tour. And at that time, after that, we got together in the bar. I don't know, maybe Cindy, you were there. It's Mike Green was there. I know that.
And Ernie.
And Ernie was there. And several of us signed a petition and sent it to John Zeitz up in Cleveland for SABR, that we wanted to have a chapter here. And that's how it started. So several of us that are here today were at that tour of the ballpark that morning.
I did see Joe Santry at a game or two last year. He was still taking photographs. I think he's still working in there. I think he's still considered their team historian. I know he's responsible for like the signs that are around, the informational signs that are around the ballpark. So I at least saw him a couple of times last year.
That's good to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
He put together, as a number of you know, a spiral bound 8.5 by 11 type of collection of sort of year by year summary of baseball in Columbus that has some utility.
Boy, Jeremy seems lost, Blake.
Yeah, I've actually sent 2 notes. I mean, I apologize for not getting his home phone number or his cell number. You know, he actually is the one that verified the time with me when I just reminded him the other day. This whole exchange was Thursday the 9th. So, I mean, it was pretty recent. It's not like this Wednesday the 9th. He said, yeah, I should be a few minutes before 9:30. And he said, that'd be perfect. So, I mean, my guess is he's sleeping. I apologize for not getting his cell phone number so that I could have woke him. But it's probably a time zone issue that, anyway, the thing that I really wanted to talk to him about was the thing about Charleston that I found. He seemed to be such a gentleman. He seemed to, be this well-dressed, cultured guy who wanted to, who wanted respect, and yet there were the reoccurring theme of him just like laying into an umpire physically or getting into fights was just such a disconnect for me that that was all. I was hoping Jeremy could give us a little more insight as to that, because it seemed like you were talking about 2 different guys.
We don't know what happened with his wives either. That was kind of open-ended.
Yeah. 2 very nice women that seemed like, be wonderful partner, companion, and both of them fell apart. I'm sure that just being on the road so much is hard. I know the divorce rate on umpires was very high through the years. They've just gone so much. And then the Major League Baseball in recent years gives them a vacation during the middle of the season and go home for a weekend here and there. And, so that they can touch base with child raising and family decisions and all that. That's much better for them.
Talk about a job where nobody likes you, not even your wives.
Yeah.
They're making pretty good money though,
John?
It doesn't bring happiness, so.
Isn't the behavior you described, wouldn't it be similar to Bobby Knight and Woody Hayes with when they're on the field throwing chairs and punching players, and off the field they're a different person?
Maybe that's it. Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, certainly from this book, though, this happened much more often than, Woody hitting somebody Bobby always was fiery, but, I think he only threw chairs once. I mean, I'm not defending him by any means,
Right.
but they seem more one-offs than Oscar. Oscar did not seem like a one-off thing going on there.
Yeah, the author even mentioned several of the teammates, were put off by that. The guys that had known him for a long time were, his style was rubbed them the wrong way, and they didn't appreciate it. And then sometimes he's terrific and trying to teach the young players and bring them along, and very good in that way.
Seems like they got away with it. Back then. I mean, some of the penalties that he cited in the book were like nothing compared to, what they did to the umpires or opposing players and everything,
Yeah, they were slugging the umpires.
Pardon?
They were slugging the umpires, hitting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't see that today.
No.
And I can't imagine anybody wanting to be an umpire. If that happened with the regularity, it seems like it's like, how do you get anybody to do that job?
Yeah, your wife doesn't even like you.
Mike, has anybody ever hit you?
I've not been struck. I've been threatened. But in 20 years, only one really menacing threat, in which game security escorted me to my car afterwards. This was at a national final softball tournament in outside of Washington, D.C. 3-umpire game. I had third base, and the number 1 seed was getting beat by like the number 4 seed. The number 1 seed fans didn't like that very much, and they got a little rally going. And then there was a force play at third base. Bang, bang. I mean, if we had video replay examination at that level, that probably would have gone to the booth, but don't have it at that level. You make your call, you stick with it, and it probably could have gone either way. But I saw an out, I called an out, and some big bruisers, dads on the home side, that's number 1 seed side, apparently said some things that I couldn't hear, but they said some pretty menacing things about what they might do to me after the game. And afterwards, we go to the umpire room, we get our evaluations from the umpire supervisor. And I was told it was a tough call, but don't have a quarrel with your call. But we want you to know that there are 2 big bruiser guys who apparently were dads who were saying some pretty menacing things. We suggest that you let us have game security escort you to your car. Game security was a guy named, I don't know, Charles or something. He was like 6'8", 300-pound black guy. And I said, okay, Charles, you're my new best friend. I'm happy to have you walk me to my car.
Glad I asked you. That was a good story.
The disappointing message into the fathers sent to their children.
Yeah, the biggest disappointment for me in 20 years of umpiring, mostly at the high school level, but I do a little bit of Division III softball in the Ohio Athletic Conference. Your Muskingums and Mariettas and Capitals and Otterbeins, but most of the verbal nastiness comes in the summer tournament circuit, because these parents are paying thousands of dollars, to take their kids around. They all have, dreams of scholarships. college scholarships and dreams of, little Joe or Julie, really being the next big thing. And they live and die on every ball and strike call. They live and die on safe and out calls. And it's really a culture. And that's true in a lot of sports, of course, not just baseball and softball, but they're fully invested in
Boy,
it. They put the pressure on the kids, far too much pressure, and it comes out.
Well, there's a real shortage of umpires now, isn't there? And referees. I mean, they're begging people to do high school sports.
Yeah, there's a shortage in all sports. And we were told about 3 years ago in our umpires conference that the washout rate for newly certified umpires was 50% over 2 years. So you get them and you put them out there on the field, and within 2 years, half of them are gone. And so the median age of umpires keeps going up and up and up. and it's almost at a crisis stage. I mean, during the season, virtually every day, I'll get emails from coaches and athletic directors and tournament directors saying, are you open today? Are you open today? I mean, you can do as much work as you want.
Is it that culture that accounts for the turnover, or the culture of pressure? Or
the number one reason given by umpires to explain that 50% washout rate, yes, is abuse and pay. Pay right now in Ohio, in most conferences is about $55 a game, $60 a game in some high school conferences. At Division III college, it's like $100 a game, but you got to pay your own gas. And when you're driving to Ohio Northern and Marietta and Muskingum, those places, it's really no net benefit.
Yeah.
A lot of us old timers just do it for the love of the game. Just you like being out there on the ball field somewhere.
Well, my daughter played soccer before high school, and one of the parents at a game once asked their coach whether he formally protested a game, and the coach said, "We are so lucky to get people to come out and referee the game. I do not want to rock the boat with anything like that."
Yeah.
So he really sent the message to put it in proper perspective.
Yeah, I have a viewpoint that a lot of umpires don't, and my viewpoint is that it's actually gotten better in the last 10 years. That I'm doing this 20 years now, and I think it was worse in my first 10 years than in my second 10. And I give a lot of the credit to both the OHSAA and the NCAA for really marketing the whole thing about respect the game, respect the game. And coaches and they all are required to belong to coaching conferences, and they have had it drilled into them that, hey guys and women, we're losing the battle for having enough bodies out there. And it's incumbent upon us to respect the game and promote it. And so I've actually had more compliments and criticisms in the last 10 years. In the first 10 years, I wouldn't say that, but it's not uncommon anymore to be walking off the field and to hear some good things, both from coaches and fans saying, "Hey, Blue, nice game, or thanks for being here," little things like that. And those comments mean something. They go a long way.
I have a question about the book. I didn't have a chance to read it, so it's like a question from ignorance. But was there anything in the book about the interaction between the players and broader cultural figures, musicians, actors? That happened a lot depending on the city that the teams were based in.
I recall there was. I mean, and I think it's been a theme in a number of books where, the nightlife, because all the games were during the day, the nightlife, revolved around jazz clubs, and I mean, and not just in Kansas City, where I think it was kind of legendary at that Vine Street, and I can't remember what the other where the Hall of Fame is now there. But yeah, it seems really prevalent. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember at least three prominent names being mentioned. The Bo Jangles, who I believe was the best man at one of Thatcher Cage's weddings. He was probably mentioned. The Cotton Club in Harlem was mentioned. Scout Basie was mentioned. I think Louis Armstrong was mentioned. But yeah, to answer your question, Dave, he did cover a lot of that.
Thanks. I think wasn't Bill, I mean,
Jesse Owens.
Jesse
Yeah.
O. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a really interesting part of the book.
It
I
was.
didn't really, I had come across, I read a book on Johnny Vandermeer's, double no hit. And the second game was the first night game at Kevitz Field.
Brooklyn.
And so they had bands and parades and all this. Babe Ruth was there as a coach and hit some home runs, I think. And it said they had Jesse Owens was there and raced a horse or a car or something, a pregame thing. And I thought that was just a one-shot deal. Well, it turns out that Jesse Owens, for a year or two there, traveled with the team and did that at every game.
Yeah.
And raced other players. He'd give them a head start and then he'd beat them, or a horse or whatever it was, some kind of a gimmick. And that he traveled around and they advertised that as as part of the come to the game and see Jesse Owens run and all that. So I didn't know that was, he did that so much. I thought it was just like one time,
I believe he actually roomed with Charleston, some of those trips.
Yeah.
And it was Jesse didn't like to talk about it because it was very demeaning to him. And actually, there's not a whole lot out there on it because of that Jesse tried to downplay those couple years of his life and didn't really, like to have them publicized. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised they didn't use him as an early day Herb Washington, the designated runner.
Charlie Finley wasn't around.
Yeah.
Well, they only had about 12, 15 guys on the team. I guess they couldn't afford a specialist of that type. Everybody had to fill in an outfield or first base or something on their day off that they didn't pitch, that kind of stuff. So. But that was, with all of our Columbus and Ohio State connections, that was an interesting part of the book for me to find out that he was that deeply involved in the Negro League baseball at that time. I just had no idea that.
I would have liked to have asked the author too about, and maybe this is extending our conversation about Blyleven, who lately people give him more respect than they did before. But when you look at when Charleston got into the Baseball Hall of Fame, he was like the 7th Negro Leaguer. And certainly I could see Satchel Paige just because, there's a degree of popularity that is part of it. So it's not surprising that Satchel got in first, but as good as some of those other guys were, Papa Bell and Buck Leonard, I still would have expected Charleston to be the second guy in, maybe I'm just overly influenced by what's been written lately, and in Posnowski's book, he's 4th or 5th on out of the top 100. So.
I think one of the things that held him back may have been the lack of statistics. I mean, we played was the Eastern Colored League, but they only play like 80, 90 games. So he never had a chance to actually build up a lot of statistics. A lot were missing. And, maybe they just looked at it and just glanced over and says, oh, he was good, but this is the guy we talk about now. And he just got pushed down on the list from lack of knowledge or lack of numbers to help him out to start with.
I wondered whether it was a lot of the testimonials of the players as people started really doing the oral history of the league, that his star rose after that as there got to be more interest, because he because I feel like all the leagues played shortened schedules because I think they were all impacted by the fact they could make more money barnstorming than they could being in a league. So, I mean, I didn't even feel like the Negro National League or the American League played many more games than what the ECL did. So
I think a lot of it has
point.
I think a lot of it has to do with the relationship with the white public. If you think about it, the popular Negro players, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, they all had great stories about them to the white press. They had interesting nicknames. They had interesting anecdotes. And I think what I got from the book too, and Blake, you touched on it, was that Oscar could be edgy at times. And his persona could have been a little bit of the Ty Cobb, Pete Rose syndrome, where, yeah, he was a good ball player, but.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, Satchel Paige was a personality. He gave great quotes. He was sort of a spokesman for the Negro Leagues. Josh Gibson had great statistics, had great stories told about him, seemed like a very pleasant man. I think that may have entered into it too.
Good points.
Well, and look where the more popular Negro League players played later, whereas Oscar was done. He was kind of like a Ty Cobb. We know more about Babe Ruth than we know about Ty Cobb based on when he played.
Well, I think that goes back a little bit to Blake's point about the oral histories. Jeremy brought that out as the book went on, but almost everybody that was interviewed, these oral histories had Oscar as either the best or one of the two best players. And I think that may have shown up as time went on. Had that been known a little bit earlier, maybe he would have gotten in earlier into the Hall of Fame. So the oral histories, I do think, played a part, and Jeremy brought that out in the book.
I think the other thing that at least I picked up from the book, and maybe it's an inference and not specifically spoken, but it felt like Oscar did not resent Satchel Paige being kind of the glamour guy of the league. That he thought, this is good for our league. This is good for, the crowds. So he was okay with that. Which it was another level of respect I'd give Oscar Charleston for taking that attitude.
I found it really interesting about his role with the Dodgers when they were starting to integrate at the end. He was part of the brain trust there and finding players.
Yes.
I didn't really realize there was an actual Brown Dodgers team. I thought that was just kind of a ruse.
Agreed.
I would like to ask the author, the author, if there were many interviews recorded of him. I mean, did he ever give his perspective, for the, media or whatever, but some record of his, actually sitting down and talking with somebody?
Yeah, that scrapbook that he mentions seemed to be a very valuable resource that he drew on. Nice that Oscar kept that, of the clippings and photos and all that. That's a gold mine when you find something like that.
And it showed what he thought was important.
Yeah.
Any other comments? I got 10:26 here on my computer clock. So I was kind of hoping that maybe he was off by an hour.
Yeah, right. That'd be good.
And that, he'll call in any second. So it's like, I don't want to give up quite yet, even though we've.
Well, let's try
I mean,
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hang on for a while.
I didn't make it through the whole book, but I'm excited to finish it. I'm only a third of the way through. So, but I wanted just to say that the contributions of people from SABR are also referenced in the book, like Larry Lester sharing the niece Anna's photo book. So how important that is to see family contributions, but also relationships that SABR members form with family and other primary sources. So it speaks, well to what people on this call do to support other writers and researchers. I think the photos must have shared some wonderful context so we can balance the sort of hothead stories with the, calmer everyday side too.
Yeah, it's a good point, Allie. I do know I've gotten in a real habit now of looking at the acknowledgments, which I used to just kind of blow by that just because in the end, it's like, I just got the book, I'm done with the book. And I wanted to see who he was acknowledging. And I specifically was looking for Larry, who I think is, one of the experts. He and Leslie are the two people that I think are, two national experts on the Negro Leagues. So, anyways, I agree. That's good observation.
I think they had to be thrilled that somebody was going to do an Oscar Charleston book because he really was one of the unknowns as far as a lot of people were concerned. Nobody had Jerry Stricker. I don't know if you remember her.
Yeah,
Stricker. Yeah, she was going to do a Oscar Charleston book for many years. She talked about it, but had never come out. So I think they probably jumped on that with both feet and welcomed Jeremy with welcome arms for that one, because it really did fill a gap in the histories. He had a lot of the players already. Satchel Paige had a number of books, his own autobiography, but also biographies written, but nobody had done Charleston, and he really was considered by people like Larry Lester and Leslie as if not the best, certainly right up there with one of the top two or three. So
one of the disappointing things about Jerry not doing the book herself earlier was that she had shared with me some photos from the Pittsburgh Crawford days that a library was just going to pitch. And she said she'd take them in that iconic photo of the team lined up in front of the bus and that kind of archway that you got into the stadium. She had a distant photo, which I'd never seen, like kind of an overhead shot of that stadium, of Greenleaf Field. And it's like, wow. And she said she had others. She was just sharing a few of them with me because she knew I was a Pittsburgh Crawfords fan. And it's like, I'd like to see more of those photos. So I know she has them and I know they exist, but it's the only time I've ever seen those photos, even though you always see that classic photo in front of the bus that's parked in front of Greenleaf Field.
Yeah, I think Jeremy even mentioned Jerry a couple times in the book. Yeah, some of her quotes or research that she had done. So she had done a lot of research, and I don't know if they had any contact. That'd be something to find out whether he was in contact with her. But certainly the people of SABR were very cooperative. I know, Jim, you've done any of us that have done books, the people in SABR are so cooperative. And you're right, I go right to the acknowledgments to see who's been involved, because I think it says a lot about whether the author has reached out to other people and made sure that he's covered his tracks pretty good with all the knowledge that's out there with these people from SABR that maybe didn't do a book on it, but certainly know a lot about the subject matter that you're writing about.
someone or a couple folks earlier in the call, talked about the occasional outbursts and assaults on umpires, including by Oscar, and that umpiring could be a very dangerous, profession back in the day, and it was. And one of my assumptions about that I'd like to ask the author about, if he were available, is my assumption is that some of those outbursts, both by fans and players, may have been tied to wagering on the games. And if you had a substantial wager on the game and you thought that an umpire call was costing you some serious money, that could provoke a reaction that would be considered uncharacteristic, otherwise. And the author got into the numbers racket, and talked about how various team owners were also numbers kingpins in their communities. But I believe that I've read in the past in other books on baseball history that, betting in the stands was fairly common in all levels of professional, semi-professional baseball. And if you got a lot of money riding on a game and you think you got a payday but for this call or that call, I'm thinking that may have been a type of thing would provoke some of that.
Good point.
Mike, you being an umpire, maybe you've read the book. There's a book called, I think, something about When Giants Were Something. It was the Bob Motley book. He's like the only umpire I could name his name that was an umpire in the Negro Leagues. I don't quite remember the name of the book, but he was at. I had attended one of the. That's it. That's it. That another classic photo, I think.
It's a great book. It's an oral history type of book that he did with his son. And Bob Motley is arguably the most legendary, black umpire from the Negro Leagues era. And it's a very, very colorful book. I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah. I've got it. Hold that up again, Mike.
The Negro Baseball Leagues by Bob Motley with Byron Motley.
I'm wondering whether that has a second title to it. That doesn't.
I think it does. I think it does.
That doesn't remind. That doesn't look like the title doesn't ring a bell, but that cover photo really rings a bell. He had spoken at one of the Negro League conferences probably 10 years ago. The one that was in Cleveland, I had attended, and he was one of the guests.
I think you're right, Blake. I'm going to look that up.
Any other comments about the book?
Here's one other thing. Oh,
I was going to say, here's what I'm thinking. In March, I think Jeremy's going to feel really bad that he missed this. Because he was very cooperative, and he seemed excited to do it. I'm going to guess he's going to feel really bad that he overslept or we had some kind of miscommunication. So I'm going to invite him to another meeting if you guys think that's worth it.
Yeah. Yes.
Sure.
What does that say, Mike?
You're right. Ruling over Monarchs, Giants, and Stars.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Ruling over Giants, Monarchs, and Stars. That was the other title. That was, I think, the first one.
Yeah, that's which one I have. So anyways, I'm thinking I'm going to invite him to maybe it's just, one of our talking baseball where, I have him as one of the speakers, because I think he's going to feel really bad. I feel like there's still some insight that we'd love to get specifically from him. So, and if people don't really want to come, you don't have to, but I think he's going to feel pretty bad that he didn't make this.
Well, if the lockout continues like this, we're going to need some subject to talk about. It's going to be March. We're still not going to talk to each other. So we're going to run out of material. Otherwise, that's a great idea.
We'll start talking about those Baseball Presents episodes on the MLB network. That gives you infinite supply of information. I rewatched the Expos one couple weeks ago.
Blake, do you think there's any chance that Jeremy dropped us because he could make more money barnstorming today?
It might have been, you don't know. Maybe somebody was actually willing to pay him to come. And he could come in person and he could sell books right then and there. Although I told him, I said, probably most of the people on the call will have bought your book as opposed to taking it out of the library. But maybe I should have said I expected 200, not 20. I told him I thought we'd have 20 to 22 people. So anyways.
Just one other thing on toward the end of the book there, he talks about when Oscar's the manager of the Indianapolis Clowns and they get Tony Stone, the woman, a second baseman. One day this week, the Google Doodle.
I know.
Tony Stone. Did everybody see that? And
I did see it.
Animated one, and it showed her catching a ball, and then that went over.
Yeah.
And then if you clicked on it, it had a nice little bio of her and how she got her baseball background and was part of the team and all that kind of stuff. And then they had an off-Broadway play about her right before the pandemic in 2019. I remember seeing in the New York Times, they did a play review of it with a photo and all that kind of stuff. So that's another piece of all this that has come back. But so.
Any other comments on the book before we look toward the next book?
Like, I'll chime in. I haven't said anything yet about my experience, but there's two things that I thoroughly enjoyed about the book. And one was, I think Jim said it really well. It was really like two books for me too. It really opened my eyes on what a great player Oscar was. But I loved how it tied together a lot of Negro Leagues lore for me. Having read books about Satchel or Larry Doby or, some of the stories about the Negro Leagues in general. I mean, you see them coming back to, a lot of the same cities, the barnstorming stories and so forth. And I thought that was really helpful for me just to kind of tie together some things that I've gotten bits and pieces of before. And the other thing that was really interesting to me, having grown up in Delaware, I can tell everybody, Judy Johnson is just revered in the state of Delaware because he was from there. And Hilldale wasn't very far from my hometown. So I understand why he hung around in that area or sometimes, got over to Pittsburgh and other places, but he really was an East Coast guy. And I loved all the references to him and some of the things that I could relate to geographically that were in the book as well.
Good. Anyone else? All right, so it'll probably be May when we would, I'm staying on the quarterly book schedule. A reminder, the top books from the last one, just so you know, we usually always have whatever the second and third place ones for the year before, the month before, to carry over. The book that finished second was the I Love Sacrifice Flies, the Tim Kirchen book. The third one was the Ernie Banks bio. Fourth, which has been on the list for a while, the Louis Tion book. And fifth, which didn't get a lot of support, was the Pete Rose theme. I think I was even the one that recommended it, just because I feel like we've always had indirect discussions about Pete and his 4 different books with his revision of his own memory. So Anyway, so I mean, certainly from my perspective, I think the Kirchin book and the Banks book, those two should be books we should keep in the running. But what do others think, and what else would we add? We actually, the Oscar Charleston book last time wasn't a repeat. It made it on its first try. So I mean, sometimes it's good to have a fresh list. So
I'd like to nominate Sam McDowell's new book. It's coming out next month.
Because it's not out yet, Tony, let's nominate it in May after we know it's already out. I think just from an availability standpoint, I know I have some people in the group that are that typically want to get their books from the library, and you usually have to add time after it's released for it to actually get into the library system. So save that one and let's nominate it on the next one, because I think that will be a good one. That his for anybody who attended that Sudden Sam interview, it was terrific. He was really he was so much sharper than I was expecting. And maybe just because my last experience with a aging ball player was Bill Verdon before he had passed away, and I felt like we were overly dependent on his wife answering some of the questions and his writer, whereas man, Sam could hold his own. I felt like he was still really sharp.
And I think it's going to get into a lot more than just the baseball. I think it'll be a really interesting book. So we need to keep that on tap.
Blake, a question for you.
Yep.
On your suggestion about Pete Rose, and given the regard that most people on the call have for Joe Posnanski, has the group ever considered widening it beyond Rose and looking at Posnanski's book titled The Machine on the 75 Reds?
No, but let's nominate that. That might be a better way to do it. And like, I think a lot of what happens, and a couple of you guys and gals have even said it here, is that a lot of times you read one book, and then because it's 3 months, you pick up another one and start reading it as well, because it had been on your list. So it's like, well, as soon as I finish this one, I'll read the other one beforehand. I'm seeing it's not out in paperback yet, which I think will hurt people wanting to vote for it.
It is out in paperback. According to Amazon, the paperback is available on the Amazon website for $11.39.
All right, then that answers that. Okay, well, I'll put that on the list. That'd be a good one on the list. Rob James going, now we're talking.
Oh yeah, Mike and I both, I'm sure.
Okay. Others. Right now I got 3 books to pick from: Ernie Banks, Sacrifice Flies, and the 75 Machine. I don't think this has ever happened where we don't have more books to.
We can't nominate books that are not in paperback, though, right?
I'll tell you, that used to be our rule. If you nominate it, before we accept the nomination, we'd look and see that the library's got some copies. But the preference would be, because a lot of people do buy them, the preference would be that. But we kind of broke that rule. We did the book K before it was out in paperback, and one other we did. So we've broken that precedent before.
Well, I would nominate the Dave Parker book then, because I thought that was excellent. baseball book. And I think it's an academic press, so I wonder if it ever will be in paperback.
Okay.
When did that come out?
A year ago.
Well, I think it's more of a, I think it's more a cost issue with people as opposed to whether or not it's a hardback or paperback. I mean, you know, while we're speaking here after Mike showed the Motley books, I mean, I Googled them and you can get copies of those for $4 to $6, you know? So, I mean, I think we need to get away from the paperback versus hardback.
Yeah.
Because I think the concern among some of the members is more along the lines of cost.
Yeah.
Instead of-
Yeah, that jogs my memory. That was one of the things with the
I think we
DeRocher
limit
book,
ourselves, I think.
because the DeRocher book was still only available in hardback, but yet you could. I bought my hardback for $6.
Yeah, Amazon says Cobra's still $17.73 only in hardcover.
But there are used copies for as low as 11 on Amazon.
What's the name of the
There
book
are
and the
paperback
author
books out
so
there
we can
right
look
now.
it up on the library?
$17.
I
Cobra,
think it's called
Dave Parker.
Cobra.
It's just called Cobra. Yep.
I mean, I'd love to read that book. I mean, I'm going to read it anyways
It's
pretty
great.
soon. So
It's an autobiography, so it's in Parker's voice.
yeah.
And he talks a lot about growing up in Cincinnati. That's a huge part of the book. And
There are a lot of paperback books out there that are more than $17 right now.
Yeah.
The point of, you know.
All right. So now I'm up to 5 books. Banks, Sacrifice Fly, 75 Machine, Dave Parker. What am I missing? How come I have something that I can't read my own handwriting here?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Louis Tiant was on your
Oh, right.
list,
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
Yeah. Do people want to leave
Mr.
Louis Tiant on the list? I feel like it's been on the list for a long time.
I'll
Which
probably be the
maybe
only
it's
vote.
due. What's that?
I still vote for it, but that's the only, I'm probably the only one.
I mean, eventually we pick Willie Mays. I mean, Willie Mays was on the list for a long time, but he was always really close, whereas Tiant's never really been close. I mean, he's never finished second or third place, unless there were only 3 books. I'm just saying.
Like,
Yeah.
how about
John?
a book on considering a book on Kurt Flood and the labor movement?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we've had that on there before.
Yeah, it's called A Well-Paid Slave.
Yeah. All right.
Classic.
Good idea. All right. Any others?
I'm not finding Dave Parker's book on the library. Maybe somebody else can find it, but I searched for it on Amazon. Then I pasted that into the library website and that doesn't come up at all.
I mean, that would surprise me, but
They have it at the library, Jim. I don't know how many copies they have, but they have it at the library.
Okay, I put in the full
Greg
title.
Rhodes
It's
has
the
a new
Worthington
book too.
Library.
Cobra, A Life of Baseball and Brotherhood. Is that the one?
Yep.
Sounds like it. I don't know how many copies they have, but I know they have at least one copy.
Okay, I'll try it again, but I got 0. So
Okay.
let's see.
well, if I find it on the library, I'm going to add it to the list. If I end up not
Okay.
finding it on the library, which I mean, it sounds like we're gonna.
Sure.
I'm doing
problem. Sorry
I'm
about that.
That's all right. I'm going to do a search just on Dave Parker. Because sometimes if you put too much in your search, you know, it's looking for an exact match.
So you got to put in the author's name.
I thought the author was Dave Parker.
He is.
I'm getting nothing.
That's what I
What did
thought.
what did you say, Steve? Is there another author?
There's a co-author to that book.
Yeah, Dave Jordan.
Dave or David?
Dave, D-A-V-E Jordan.
What it says on Amazon, yeah.
I'm seeing for the library, it's possible that there are no Columbus branches, but you can request it.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, like the Cincinnati library system has a bunch of copies.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it here. All right, let's kick that one down the road a little bit, and see if the library gets it before the next time. We've got some other good books to pick from. I'm just trying to be good to everybody here.
Thanks.
So,
For
all right.
that.
Huh? What's that, Steve? Any others? All right, fellas, I'm gonna set something up in March. If I can. I still have not heard back from, I've kind of left my screen up here with hoping Jeremy was gonna answer like sorry already, but I think I'm gonna hear from him. Anyways, I'm gonna schedule something in March. It'll be a talking baseball. If Jeremy can meet with us, we'll have a bonus speaker. The other thing that I'm going to work on, just from a timing perspective, is see if we can get Al Oliver to come up and talk to us this summer when it's good weather and we're meeting in person. To the best of my knowledge, he did move to Pittsburgh, so I don't know whether we'd only get him by Zoom, but I know he was in Portsmouth for a long time. But I'm at least going to try to get him. He seems to live a fairly high profile life, so he's always being interviewed for a lot of stuff on the Pirates. So I think he just moved back to Pittsburgh. I think I read something where he said, that's my home, even though Portsmouth is really his home. When I interviewed him for a story I wrote, I drove down to Portsmouth, and he's a pretty personable guy. So anyways, we'll see if I can get that going at some point as well. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yes, could we have Dave give us a little reminder about the film program coming up?
Yep. Go ahead,
What that
Dave.
involves?
Yeah, sorry. Let me pull up the date here.
April 7th.
April 7th. On April 7th, we're going to do an event at the Wexner Center. The main event is with the baseball writer Craig Calcaterra about his new book, Rethinking Fandom. But I put together like a 20-minute version of some of those old baseball film programs I've done in the past. It's all from the silent era, the teens and 20s. The Giants, Jim Thorpe, John McGraw, Christy Matheson, some more Black Sox footage. Yeah, it's a short program, but I think it's an interesting one, and I think it's going to be more for the hardcore baseball fans than the casual baseball fans. But some good views of some of the stadiums that were around there around that time, and yeah, I can post a list of what's in the program if you can indulge me for
Okay, good.
20 seconds here.
Does anybody know, was Craig ever a SABR member? Has anybody ever run across him? Blake, do you recall him ever being on our list as a SABR member?
I don't.
He lives locally, is that right?
Yeah, he's in New Albany.
All right.
How do you spell his last name?
Calaterra.
Yeah, that doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
Okay.
I put a list of all of the clips that will be in the program in the chat if people want to just see some of the names that will be appearing in some
Dave,
reds.
can we get advance tickets at the Wexner Center?
Yep, they should be going on sale. It might be a few weeks, but I mean, you can buy them at the door, certainly, if that's what you mean. Yeah, you don't have to buy them online or anything like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Anything else? Rick,
Well, I still hope to have an in-person meeting. Larry Baum's here, and I know he's still working, polishing up his talk. It should be great after 2 years. I'm expecting close to a perfect game from Larry.
Rick, could you just remind me of what it is I'm supposed to be talking about?
Yeah, I know. I know we had a speaker lined up too, and I can't remember who it was at this point. But no, he was the one of the official scorers for the Clippers, and hopefully we can still get him. But it's the kind of thing, it'd be a lot more fun if we had it in person and people can mix.
Yeah.
And it's just this is harder to do. So well, I'm still hopeful. Let's put it that way.
Any predictions on what's going to happen later today with the press conference?
Owners asked for arbitrators. The players said no. I think owners said something about going to court to force an arbitrator.
There's going to be a meeting today between the owners and players.
Right, I did hear that.
And I just wonder what kind of movement we're going to see, if we're going to see any at all.
Yeah.
My guess is if the players say no again, I think the owners will go to court and order an arbitrator. Because I think New York Times article yesterday had extensive interviews with some of the owners, and they're getting a little worried now. They can't afford to lose games, they said. So they know they got to get into spring training here in the next couple of weeks. So I think the owners may cave on this first.
Maybe Justice Sotomayor will have to step in again.
I'm in favor of the arbitrator just because I feel like it'll speed the process up. And at this point, I just want to get my baseball back.
I agree with Blake.
Yeah, it'll be getting them at least to talk through an arbitrator, at least through a movie anyways.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Ryan, hold on 1 second before you log off. Let me give you an update of part of our meeting because I know you were attending the meeting in DC. But if nobody has anything else.
Who day?
Yep.
Good
I hear
luck,
you.
Bengals.
Go
Bengals.
Buckeyes beat Michigan. We're playing
go
Michigan
Buckeyes.
basketball today. So.
All right, guys.
Oh, that's right.
We need a win.
Gal.
Go get them.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, all.
Thank you, Blake.
Yep.
Thank you, Blake.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Ryan, I'm glad you went to the DC first. Jeremy never showed. I talked, or I at least was in contact with him on Wednesday. So I mean, he was all in, and I don't know. I know he's in. I think he's in Phoenix. So I don't know whether he just slept in, or what was the thing. I gave him a couple prompts during the meeting, but he never showed.
So what the heck did you do? Just discuss things?
Yeah. So we went ahead with, I mean, because we've done the book club a lot without without an author. So, I mean, we eventually, but it made for a sluggish start because we kept thinking he was going to call in at any moment. But eventually we just kind of talked about the book. I'm gonna invite him to another meeting. I think he's gonna feel really bad that he missed it.
Oh, sure. He's a great guy. So
yeah, and so I'm gonna invite him to a meeting next month. So I just wanted to fill you in that even though we recorded this, don't go back expecting to say, oh, I must have just missed Jeremy, because he actually never made it. And he still hasn't responded to my messages this morning. So
actually, Ralph Carhart was late in DC too. So it must have, something in cyberspace must have been going around.
maybe
it's Omicron, and I don't know.
All right. Well, anyways, just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Good to see you.
I'll see you guys in a month or so. I think you heard that, Mike. I'm gonna still try to get Jeremy to, and we'll see if it works. But usually does. So, because I think he'll feel bad.
Sure.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.